So I'm in this secret meeting that Google is holding online, and there's just a few other people in the room as I'm watching them tell us all about the newest features that they will bring out in 2020 for the Google Assistant and the Google Nest devices. Just kidding. You all could have been there, but there is a lot to tell you about. Hello Automators, thanks for tuning in again. I'm Brian from Automate Your Life, and today I'm going to take the frustration out of automation by keeping you up to date on what is coming for your whole Google Home ecosystem. Now, normally what happens is Google I/O hits in early May of every year, and this year has obviously been really different. So instead, what Google did is had a small summit for their developers, and they had an online conference that I was able to attend. Before I go on to all of these things that you have been asking for a long time, I want to tell you that towards the end of this video, I'm going to show you the new Google Home speaker because we do have a full visual of that product. One of the things that has frustrated me for so long is the fact that I can't execute true automation with the Google Home system. I'm sure it's been frustrating you too, that all we really have access to is routines. And while that's nice, that is not device triggers. And I've been telling you for a while that this has been coming, and it should already have been here if we didn't have this whole pandemic thing going on. Now, we did get confirmation that device triggers will come, but we also got confirmation of much more. Something that I showed on the channel a little while ago was the fact that I could arm and disarm a system, but that really didn't do anything at this point. We don't have a system to disarm, and that's because it's being brought into a much larger system that all of us can use. In the end, this is going to give us access to much more integration with our Nest products. So what is actually going to be possible at the end of this is, I think, every Google Assistant integrated or Google Home integrated product is going to have the ability to interact directly with your Nest products. Now, these companies are going to have to make that decision and want to do that, but I don't see a lot of companies that want to work with Google Assistant not taking advantage of this new tool and this new access. Now, it doesn't mean that they have access to all of your data, and it doesn't mean they have access to all this private information or your actual Nest camera feed. It does mean that they can use the Nest devices to trigger things within their own system and vice versa. So we're going to see not just device triggers, but integration with the Nest products for any product within Google Assistant. And it gets crazier. See, it's going to usher in a whole new world of routines where companies can actually create routines that they think would work really well within your Google Home and then suggest that to you as part of their automation system. So this is not just limited to regular old device triggers. It is routines and automation and things that can be suggested by companies. Now, let me give you an example of this. If you have a DVR or a television set and you're not from the Middle Ages, well, then you can probably integrate it with Google Home. And if you can do that, what the device manufacturer is going to be able to do is actually use a lot of the same things that your other Nest branded products can do. So think of it in terms of the Nest Hello. That will show up on smart displays, the Google Nest Hub, the Google Nest Hub Max. It'll show up there automatically if someone rings that doorbell. Well, that same DVR maker, and Google used the example of Dish, if they would like, they could auto display that as well on their DVR system. So they'd have access to the same abilities as Nest already does. Another example that hits a little closer to home for me is, you know what, you buy a thermostat and then you feel the need to have little temperature sensors. And I think about Ecobee when I say this. You know, you have those little sensors all around your home and they integrate, but the fact is they're more expensive than a standard temperature sensor that you can get for $5 to $20 depending on the brand you get. Well, SwitchBot has those little meters that are temperature and humidity, and you could actually use those to trigger your thermostat to take action. Now, all of this can be handled inside of the SwitchBot system because they will have access to the Nest thermostat and it can also be handled inside the Google Home application. You're going to have your choices. Speaking of things like DVRs and TVs, well, you're going to have access to something called Shed, or Smart Home Entertainment Devices, coming into the Google Assistant and gaining a lot more control. We've seen this kind of done piecemeal throughout, but just this last week we saw Samsung SmartThings being able to bring all of the Samsung soundbars basically through that system into Google Home, and this is part of this Shed initiative. Now, you're going to be able to do things like turn on the TV, and with DVRs, it's start and stop recordings, change volumes, all of the things that you would expect. On DVRs, you'll be able to change the channel by name, or you'll be able to pause and rewind TV, so you have a ton of control there. Now, I remember this, and maybe you remember when I thought I was real fancy and I showed you the gentle wake up routines and the ability to slowly shut off your lights over 30 minutes with Philips Hue. Well, the fact is that program is being expanded, and Google is giving access to any light maker in order to use those kinds of capabilities. Now, today you can use it with Hue in LifeX, and there's kind of 3 commands that you can use. The syntax is to sleep the lights in a certain room or wake my lights at a certain time. You can also ask for the gentle wake up, and you can do this right now. If you just request that, it will synchronize with the alarm you have set on that device, and that will start the gentle wake up process 30 minutes before your alarm goes. And you can also, if you just ask that to happen, see what lights you have in your home that will work with gentle wake up. I am getting very excited for Android 11, just what I've seen already from the beta and a lot of the new capabilities that we're even getting in the old version. And there's a couple of videos I made recently. Number one, my favorite new control interface on my smartphone. That is a really paradigm shifting take on how you use widgets and how you can create a one-tap interface for yourself. On top of that, the personal safety application and some of the new recording options you have with your smartphone, those are great. Check out those links, they're on screen right now. But on top of that, Android 11 is creating a new smart home controls interface for you that will be very different than anything you've had. Now, for myself, I don't want people controlling my smart home without being authenticated on my smartphone. I don't mind if they see some of the device statuses, but you know what? That's going to be a personal decision, and Google actually gives you access to that. You can obviously control a lot of your home, and we're going to see further advances with that later beyond 2020 with things like routines and other automations. Maybe the biggest pet peeve of mine is just how long it takes from the time I wake my Google Assistant to the time that the command actually executes and I see changes in my smart home. Well, the local home SDK, I showed Yeelight, and my Hue lights have clearly switched over. They are very quick in terms of actually executing a command now, and that's what local home will do to the commands you issue on your Google Assistant. They're going to make them almost instantaneous. What's even better is that actions are now available. So this is going to go beyond lighting, and while there are a number of makers that already have access to this lighting local home SDK, it's now going to go beyond that, and this is really important for the rest of our home automation. Sadly, I think Google is trying to put me out of business, guys. Unfortunately, they're trying to make it so simple to integrate other products that I'm just not necessary in terms of showing you guys how to do that. Good on them for doing it, a little sad for me. Maybe head over to Patreon. We also saw all kinds of things in terms of the interface that make it easier. You can flip between apps. We saw increased capabilities on the Nest thermostat for control inside of the Google Home app. The smart home power controls interface, they will have sliders and all the control elements that you would expect there, but you can also jump into the app very quickly if you need to. I first showed you Thread about almost 2 years ago actually on Automate Your Life, and I said this is a big deal. It's going to change how your smart home works, and it's going to change the landscape of protocols, and it's probably going to make your wife less jealous of my home. But you know what? In the end, it it's taken a lot longer than it was supposed to, and that's because it was kind of being worked on behind the scenes by a number of companies, and they came out and said, okay, we're all going to partner now. The Connected Home over IP project includes Google, Amazon, Apple, and the entire Zigbee Alliance, which means companies like Samsung. Now, they've been working on this specification for a little bit now, and the first one is due out towards the end of 2020, but they gave us some more insight into how all these technologies are going to be used. So here's how it will work. Every device will be IP based. This is important for the overall Internet of Things and for working with Wi-Fi in your home. Now, Thread will be used as a low power mesh protocol. The other thing that was really interesting is that Bluetooth will be used for device commissioning to bring it into that network. So they're actually using a lot of technologies within this one standard to bring it all together. Now, I promised you some details about the new Google Home speaker, and I'm not going to go into everything here, but we first talked about this in our previous Google Home updates video. It looks a lot like this, but it definitely has a better speaker set than the original Google Home. It's being upgraded pretty clearly. I like the look. It's very different, but I think it will work in a lot of homes. Now, the other things that we have are just really the pictures and some of the Wi-Fi capabilities. They've used Bluetooth within here, and obviously, this is all going to work within everything we've talked about today. Now, with all of these new features, there's still things that we don't know until we go through them in depth, and that's why I went through the video calling features recently. That is up on screen right now, and even if you think you know everything about video calling, I guarantee you don't. There are some new incredible capabilities, so go watch that video and learn how to really use your Google Assistant enabled smart displays. Otherwise, thanks for watching, everyone, and of course, don't hate, automate.